Good afternoon, everybody. We have a quorum. So I call the meeting of the Allocations Committee to order at 4:35 p.m. Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome back. The first item on our agenda is the approval of the December 4th, 2025 Allocations Committee meeting minutes. Everyone should have received that in your packet 2 days ago. At this time, I can entertain a motion.
I move we approve the minutes as presented.
We have a motion from Commissioner Spellacy. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Was that Commissioner Truzilla or Commissioner
Yes.
Bedell? Commissioner Truzilla. We have a second from Commissioner Truzilla. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposition? The motion passes unanimously. The next voting item relates to the Cultural Organization Program guidelines, but before we get to the vote, we have a briefing on COP guidelines fiscal year 26-27 from Julia, and Julia is at the Latino Cultural Center with us today. Welcome back, Julia. We're glad to have you. I'm going to recognize Julia and ask that everyone hold your questions until Julia pauses and asks for questions. We have a little bit to get through today. Thank you.
Thanks. So the first thing that I want to mention is that these guidelines, we had some help getting them written from about a little under half of our COP organizations. The very first thing we did in getting these guidelines ready was invite all of our COP organizations, their executive directors and their grant contacts to join us for engagement sessions to learn what they liked about the program, why they apply, and what we need to make sure that we keep or think about as we were assessing the guidelines this year. So we held those two sessions on December 18th and 19th, both virtual. And as you can see, Adriana, would you mind scooting forward a couple? Yep, keep going. Actually, one more. About 27 organizations out of our 65 came, which is just under half. So the point of doing this and doing it this early, even though I know it feels like we just flipped around on awarding all the funding, is because guidelines needed to be drafted and voted through council by February to be able to be up this spring. But for organizations that couldn't attend in December, because I know this is a busy time, especially for all these dance organizations, it was Nutcracker season for, I think, 4 of our dance organizations alone. For those who couldn't make it, we invited them to contribute by email as well. So, but these representatives from 27 organizations attended, and I actually do think that this is a really good subsection of our organizations. It includes people from organizations from all revenue tiers, including multiple first-time awardee applicants, and then several historical awardees who have been in it, some since the very beginning of this program. So really good subset of people and ideas represented, and you're welcome to take a look at that here. Okay, on the next slide, what did we learn? There are 3 sort of themes that came out of these 2 conversations that I wanted to share with you. The first thing was resoundingly loud. There was not a single person or organization that disagreed with this one. We heard really clearly that this has to be year 2 of the 3-year cycle. The reason we asked was because we had always planned to make COP as starting last year a 3-year or at least multi-year program. But since so much changed last year, including how what we asked the panel to grade, and we had to remove points from panel and make that access and impact survey to sort of fill in that gap, I wasn't sure that all organizations would still think that their panel score was fair and something that they wanted to carry over into future years. And what we heard really loudly was that organizations applied last year, and frankly, panelists put in the hours last year, intending for that to hold for 3 years. And so one quote that I really wanted to highlight from you from one of the orgs was that I feel pretty strongly that the 3 years, starting with this year, we'd like to continue. While exhibitions change, projects change, et cetera, this program is designed to be supportive of the organization as a whole. Arts Activate is for individual projects, and this is for organizational support. We applied thinking that this was 3 years worth of work. If you're pulling the rug out from orgs and panelists by starting with last year as or by starting with this year as year one, it feels you're not respecting their initial time and investment in selecting these groups. And that was unanimously felt by everyone on the phone for 2 days. So, heard, we're going to keep rolling. So there is no need for you to vote or think about that in these terms of these guidelines. It puts forward that this is year 2 because that's what we heard really loudly with no objection. Okay, so second thing we heard is that the access and impact survey, and just a reminder to those who weren't on the commission or weren't in this committee last year, access and impact is a section that is traditionally graded by panel. It's worth 20 points, and it looks at how our COP organizations are, well, impacting and making their programs accessible to the Dallas community. So that means how are they getting out of the arts district? Do they have programs that invite people in? Do they have programs that are accessible to a lot of different audiences and not just their traditional one? And so the panel has been usually asked in prior years to assess that. By the way that we asked it in the guidelines, we were not allowed to use that section because it was no longer federally compliant. So we made a survey that was a 10-question survey, 2 points each, that the answers were all yes or no. Do you have a program designated for senior citizens? Yes or no. Do you have a way of taking into account feedback from your audience? Yes or no. And we awarded those 20 points back in that way. What we heard from this engagement session was that that survey was actually pretty helpful because it allowed people to clearly state what they had and what they didn't. But the way that I wrote it was so broad that some folks had trouble understanding whether their programs counted or not for that question. So overall, the survey was really helpful, but if we're going to use it again, which I think we should, it needs to be written more clearly. And there's some quotes that sort of back that up there. So that's what we're going to do. The access and impact survey just is going to continue to be part of what we grade, but the way that we write the questions will be clearer. And there will be an opportunity under each question for somebody to explain it. Okay, so that's number 2. And then number 3 thing we heard was that in general, applicants really value the continuity in funding over the opportunity for growth or even potential loss each year. So we didn't ask the question explicitly at the first day, just because we ran out of time. But we did on day 2 of, do you want this funding to be able to go up or down if you are doing new things? Would you like us to be able to flex that award for new work, even though there's a possibility also of, loss in second or third year or getting less? And overall, most organizations said, actually, no, it's really helpful to know what we're going to get over multi-years. So we place a really high value on multi-year grants. There seem to be fewer these days. The importance of multi-year funding is spot on. And then somebody else said there are multiple other places we can look for project-specific grants. So if we have a new work or we're building a new thing, there is only this one for operational funding. So I don't think that's something we have to put in the guidelines necessarily, but I do think it's helpful for us as an allocations committee to know, is that's why people are coming, is not necessarily that they expect this program to grow and flex with them every year, but because it sets something up for their budget that they can count on, which I think is something helpful to know as we look into years 2 and 3 of this multi-year. Okay, so taking that all into consideration, there were several other ideas shared that weren't unanimous across everybody, but I think are relevant and important to bring to you. The video did a 50-50. Interestingly enough, it split a lot based on art forms. Dance companies loved the video by and large, because it allowed them to show the dancing. With one exception, one dance company said, absolutely not, I hate this. Totally fine. But in general, visual and arts programs that have a visual or musical medium really liked it. Whereas things like our art forms, like that are our museums and whatnot, really didn't care about the video because they felt they'd set it in the application. So that might be something that we could consider optional in the next 3-year cycle. But because we made it required for year one, I'm going to refer it for new people the next 2 years too. So, but it might be something to think about for later. When asked if panel scores should be considered in year 2 and year 3 applications, people were kind of divided on that. The way that staff suggests for based on the fact that people were not overwhelmingly, saying, yes, throw my panel in. The way that staff is looking at it that comes up in these guidelines is that your panel score in year 1 is your entrance into the program. You cannot be part of the program without your panel score being pretty excellent, which so far to this point has been true. Everybody who's admitted to the program, their panel score was excellent. So that's your gateway to get into year, and then years 2 and 3 is admin only. Because trying to figure out how to do some sort of proportion thing and the math behind working in your panel score from year 1, which won't change and you can't edit, doesn't seem like it would be a valuable use of it wouldn't be a valuable help for the organization, because that's just something that carries over rather than something new that we can point to on a score sheet. That could be open to discussion if folks think that is not a good way to do it, but that's what we're putting forward today. And then sort of 2 smaller things. An applicant asked for ways to streamline the application. We're kind of limited in the computer program that we use, but we can cut the length of it. So we're going to do that. And then an applicant wanted to be able to tell you and tell their panelists more about their financial challenges and goals, especially in year 1, to help you sort of understand where they're coming from and how much they might need. So we can talk about that the next time we get to year 1. So those are just other things that we heard that I wanted to report back that we heard. But overall, we were really, really, really blown away by how positive an experience this was. Most people are really counting on this program and really appreciate the sustainability and continuity of it. And they really appreciate us acknowledging that their workload, especially in development teams, has really increased. And so somebody saying, actually, hey, we'd like to cut the length of this and make it multi-year is very welcomed. So overall, on the right track, let's keep going, is what we heard. So putting that all together, here's how that translates into the document that you got this week. So people that are returning, so that means we funded them last year. It doesn't mean they've applied before. It means they got money in 2025, 2026. That is what returning means. Their application has 3 parts: a main application, supplemental materials, and then a third one that honestly isn't really much of a part. It's just like signing off at the end saying, yes, I mean everything in here and I stand by it, and this is as correct as I know to be true. New applicants will have a 5-part application, and the 2 things they also have to do is a new applicant profile and a video. Thus endeth the reading of the lesson. That's it. So we're hoping that will make it shorter for people. The other big thing that's different between a year 2 and a full application is that a year 2, a lot of what we're asking for are documents, and you'll see what I mean in just a second. So hopefully that's a click and drop of something you already have, rather than needing to like write me an essay. Full application for new applicants will still have to write the essay, but hopefully the returning folks will not. Okay. These are the requirements that are the same for everybody who gets in, and this is going to stay the same too. So first thing is they got to present a season. You must have a season of artistic or cultural services. The headquarters and at least half of your activities have to be in Dallas. Then you have to publicize your season. You got to put the OAC logo and sponsor credit on it so that Dallas taxpayers know that their dollars are going towards these programs. Then you got to operate a season, which is you got to have your employee, you got to be in good 501c3 standing, and you got to obey all the laws, just all of them. And that's our blanket statement. You gotta follow all of the laws. Yeah. And yep, jaywalking too. And organizations must submit an auditor 990 that shows that they're still in that revenue bracket every year. And then they're going to fulfill a contract. So then for our side, it's 12 monthly reports and a final report. So this will be the same requirements that we always have. Okay, so how we're going to score this thing. This is where it gets fun. So for returning organizations, it's out of 80 points. Your wonderful chairs asked me, Julia, why isn't it out of 100? Everything we do is out of 100. I ran out of things to grade, folks. We're trying to keep this short and sweet. So I can make this out of 100 if you would like me to, but I don't think we should grade more things. Here's what we're looking at in these 80 points. Access and impact, 20 points is that same survey, but it'll be more specific than last year to respond to that feedback. And what that will do is allow us in a really quantifiable way to continue just being able to show, yes, we're still serving the populations that we want to serve in all of the areas of Dallas that we want to serve them. Artistic and cultural services, this is 20 points. You get in your scope of work, and this is one of the things we'll discuss in just a moment, but your scope of work that becomes your contract, we're still going to ask for. And then 10 points for the projection matrix. Up till this point, this has been optional and it's been worth 4 points. And so some people just haven't turned it in because it's work to put together. Making it 10 points out of 80 makes it mean more. And we really need it because it allows us to get projections of what people are actually going to do in the year and what they're going to spend. Then there's 20 points for contract compliance. So 8 points for did you turn in your stuff last year? 4 points for did you turn in your audit last year? 4 points for did you have a panelist show up? And 4 points for marketing, which is did you put your logo on things? Okay, the last 20 points are financial stewardship, which is are you operating in the black? Cash on hand, fundraising expense percentage, organizational board governance, that's a give and get policy. We are not asking about board diversity. It is give or get policy only. Employee pay, are we paying our people not just the minimum wage, but the MIT measured living wage, which is now $23.06. And then this last bullet in blue is the only one that is brand new. This one says, are you using relatively recent, as in the last 3 years, strategic plan, employee handbook, board handbook, and safe workplace policy? This, I think, is, while not groundbreaking, earth-shattering, or a lot of work for people to put together, I think is good incentive for people to have those things and have them, and also let us know kind of who doesn't have those things as we look at risk of these contracts. So as you can see here, there's really only two new things that we're asking about. The scope of work, which frankly has always been what we've asked for. We just have asked for it in the course of what are you going to do this year? This time we will explicitly say, please write the scope of work that you feel is appropriate for your contract. Like point blank, here it is. And that operational management of make sure that your documents, show us your internal controls of your organization that show us how you're going to operate this in a financially sound way. I do actually want to pause right here, if that's okay, Chair, just to make sure nobody has any questions about these 80 points. Anybody have any questions about these?
Commissioner Truzilla.
Thank you. You mentioned audit. What are we going to do for the smaller organizations that don't have to turn in the audit?
Sure. So for the smaller organizations that below 500K that don't have to turn in the audit, we ask them to turn in the 990 at the same time. So we accept that
Okay.
instead. And that's written in
Got
the
it.
guidelines. Yeah. You just have to turn in either your 990 or your audit 6 months after the close of your fiscal year. Anybody else have any questions about any of these bullets? Commissioner Spellacy?
Okay, I guess I don't have questions about the bullets specifically. It's just about what we're looking at here is just the administrative scoring portion, correct? That'll be for years 2 and 3.
So this is year 2.
Okay.
Yes.
So then will that change when we go back to year 1 down the road and we have a panel score again?
Yes.
That's my question. And I guess my other question, and this maybe you may want to address this later, but is just about new organizations that come in not on a year 1 cycle. Does that mean they just won't get a panel score when they're
Nope.
entering?
Haven't gotten to new friends
Okay,
yet.
okay, cool.
New organizations have to do the whole thing, full stop, plus panel. And I'll show you their rubric in just a second, but this is
Okay,
only
all
for
right, thank you.
returning. Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
I think
Perfect.
Commissioner
Then no, I
Jackson has
think
a
this
question,
looks
but
really
also
good to
just,
me.
yeah, and also just a reminder, remember, we're not doing this on any sort of rolling admission. So anyone who comes in as year 1 in our 3-year cycle, year 2, their next year 1 will be 2 years from now, not 3 years from now. And then anybody who comes in as year 1 in year 3, that will be their year 1, and they'll have to do another year 1 the following year. So we have this sort of 3-year block.
Yep.
So
Yep.
Commissioner Jackson.
This is super minor and I don't know why I need these details, but in terms of the scope of work, it usually has like, what does that include? Like the dates, the specific?
Oh,
dates?
no, that's a great question. So we say, what are your main programs that you'll deliver this season? So normally, and in the scope of work in their contract, I actually erase the dates because stuff moves in between when they apply and February and the end, but they'll know, like if I'm the Dallas Opera, I'll know I'm doing 12 operas.
Okay.
And so on my scope of work, there's the block of, I'm going to do the main operas. I'm going to do my education program. I'm going to do my heart conducting symposium. I'm going to do, the opera truck. I'll have those things in my scope of work. And then at the back, there's a set of deliverables by quarter. So in the first quarter, I'm going to do rehearsals, 4 main stages, a talk back, and it'll have a list like that. So it's generally by quarter. And then because stuff changes, they'll talk to me if they need to shuffle something around the date. But in general, we're looking for main blocks of services and not on April 12th, 2026, I will do this, right? That's a good question. Anybody else on the returning rubric for admin? Okay. So new people, it's a different game. So it is year 1 again for anybody who is new. So they get a panel. I anticipate that we will have between 2 and 4 organizations apply who were not funded in 2025, 2026. So they will not be split by tier. It will be a panel of about 5 to 10 people, and they will read all of the new applications all together, and they will score on the same things that we always score in the same weight that we've always done it, with the same criteria that we've always used, with the exception that it will be now legally resilient and ensure that we follow all federal directives so that we don't have to throw anything out. They will also do, the applications will also do the same access and impact survey as everybody else, but the access and impact points are going to be given by panel because that is how we prefer to do it, forever moving forward. Access and impact are supposed to be judged by people as they first come in. So this is the panel part they'll be doing. And then for their admin section, it'll look a whole lot like what you just saw. Can you go one more, Adriana? Sorry. Okay, so this for new orgs only, the access and impact is not here because the panel's judging it instead. So it's not admin, but it's got the very same artistic and cultural services points that the returning people had. The contract compliance section is entirely different because we're looking at their ability to complete a contract with us in the past and not their ability to do a COP contract specifically because they've never done one. So they get 8 points of doing a prior contract with the city that is fully done. So it has to be signed, sealed, delivered. We saw it, we stamped it, they got the check for Arts Activate or CAP. So like a big contract, they have to have finished it. If and that's 8 points. Then there's a quiz over the guidelines to make sure they know what they're getting into because we are a barrel of monkeys and fun, but we're also a lot of red tape. So I want them to know what they're getting into. A letter of recommendation and financial report accuracy. What I mean by that is, did you turn in your taxes on time last year? Prove it. And sign off saying that you're going to need to do it again this year. And you're also going to potentially need an audit depending on your revenue. So that's what you get for those 4 points. And then they've got the very same financial stewardship points as the other folks. So I've got little notes on the bottom. The A and I section's missing because it's on the panel section, and the contract compliance section is different for these folks because we're assessing their readiness for a COP contract and not just have they done one before. So if you're a new organization, you have the whole rigmarole. You got to turn in your video, do a panel, and you get 70 points from your panel and you get 60 points for admin. Anybody have any questions about any of that?
Let's start with Commissioner Truzilla and then Commissioner Spellacy.
Quick question. Is it required that they previously do a contract with the city?
No, but it's going to be difficult to earn all the points you need without it.
Okay.
But no, it's not required.
So you'll highly encourage groups to participate in one of our other programs before coming over to COP?
Yes. And I'll tell you what, we always have, like prior contract compliance has always, I think it's 6 points the year before. And I'll tell you what, one of the organizations that we just admitted this year had applied before and didn't make it, and we didn't select them for a number of reasons. They didn't score high enough in several areas. And then they came back, got an Arts Activate award, did it, learned how to write an application with the city, learned how to work with us, learned how to get a contract. And then lo and behold, when they came back, they had a score high enough to get in.
Got it.
So I think that is actually more a service for those applying than it is necessarily just to add one more barrier, because having finished something with us gets you ready for this.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Commissioner Spellacy.
Okay, I have a couple questions. So one is, I know you said earlier that in your calls with the COP groups that they were, really looking to have like that reliability of the 3-year grant cycle. They do know, however, though, that it's not guaranteed for 3 years, right? The amount, because if the
Right.
city cuts the budget, we gotta cut
Yep.
the awards. I mean, it's just the way it is. So, okay, I
Yep.
just wanted to be clear about that. The second thing is, how how are you foreseeing us? So when we look at these, we're going to have 2 completely separate lists, right? We're going to have the list of returning organizations that are just doing that 80-point admin score. And then we're going to have a shorter list of new groups that are applying for the first time that will have the full panel and everything. But like you said, it'll be one panel that'll score them no matter what size they are, what tier they are, et cetera. How would you foresee us comparing their scores to existing organizations' scores? Because normally we're seeing all the organizations within their tier compared against each other by the same panel, right? And now we no longer are able to do that. So does that question make sense?
It totally does. And I don't have we're going to talk about that in just a second, actually, as part of it. But the second, to your point of how exactly is this all going to shake out, 60 points will be apples to apples as close as I can make them. So 60 points out of the whatever, artistic and cultural services, contract compliance, and financial stewardship those 60 are as close as I can get it. Additionally, the last 20 of that artist and access and impact survey, we will actually still have from both. So it actually is up to 80 that we'll be able to compare. That's about close, which will let us see that side. And then the panel will do is like open the door. It'll basically unlock people into the program. So if somebody isn't getting and allocations will probably have to decide next year what the gatekeeping number is. But if you don't get your 60 of 70 panel points, maybe we have a conversation about your organization. But what we will tell the panel to do is not grade the organization as compared to each other, but grade it based on the rubric and what they're seeing and talk about it. One thing that I have considered is give the panelist just the scope of work answer from all of the organizations that are in that same tier. And then ask them the one question is, do you think this scope of work and based on what you've seen from this organization, does this match the level that we're seeing from the rest of comparable organizations in their tier? Yes or no? And I could do something like that of to be able to provide you one more data point. But like always, this is going to be fairly subjective on that part because the panel part is subjective. But the admin parts will be as apples to apples as I can get them.
What might be helpful when we get to that point, which will be next year, but might be to
Mhm.
for you to create a normalized score based on just a 0 to 100%, panel score, and for us to have that normalized score from the panel that did all the other organizations within their year one and be able to compare that to, this different panel. Because if it's normalized, it should be somewhat close, if that makes sense. So we could see, oh, this panel gave this organization a 98% normalized, whereas this new organization, they got a 76% normalized by this other panel. That might be just helpful to see when we get to the point of doing these.
Mm-hmm. We'll probably play with a lot of options about that. Honestly, this is the first time we're doing it, so we will learn as we go. But that's absolutely, and you will be able to, regardless of how we do it, see the scores, both admin and panel of folks from last year, from year one. Absolutely, those will be made available to you again. So, okay, can we keep going?
Any other questions? No? No? Okay.
Okay, which brings us to our point of discussion, which Commissioner Spellacy went ahead and previewed for us, is what do we look for in these scopes of work if we don't have a panel? So the artistic and cultural services section is 20 points. And the point of that section is to say, are you still providing a season of artistic and cultural services that serve Dallas residents and visitors? So 10 points of that are going to come from the projection matrix. Did you turn it in? Are you telling us what you're doing and how much you're spending on it? 10 points have to come from this scope of work. We have not given this points before. It's just been graded by panel. So in talking with your chairs, here's what we came up with. So you get what we're looking for in this section is the applicant includes a scope of work that continues to provide services of a similar or greater scope than the scope of work in year one, which was 25-26, including programs that provide a higher quality and/or quantity of artistic and cultural programs available to Dallas residents and visitors, and continue to grow Dallas's artistic community. And then just all returning applicant scopes of work are subject to review by staff and allocations. Okay, so you get full points if you submitted your scope of work that includes your programs and services that are approximately similar, or bless you, you are blowing it out of the water and doing something cool and new, bigger than last year. You get 5 points if your scope of work includes service numbers that are approximately similar, but you have some meaningful reductions and changes if you explained them and explained why they were there. So this is to catch you if you're going to have a layoff, you're going to cut some programming, you're going to tell us about it, and you're going to tell us how you're going to serve approximately similar audiences as you do it. You get no points if you are significantly different in scope, number of events proposed, and audiences served since we saw you in year one. Because and my thinking on that is if you're doing something wildly different, the panel didn't approve that. So you don't get points in that section. And getting a 0, getting like immediately out of 80 would draw our attention to that immediately, and be able to bring to you the allocations committee, and y'all could look at that scope of work further. So this is what we came up with your chairs. What do you think?
Commissioner Holomo?
Thank you. This has been really great. Thank you for preparing all of this. My concern is, and you kind of addressed this just now, but say it's 4 months, 6 months into an organization's second year or even third year of being a part of this grant cycle, and their scope of work changes, right? Does it go beyond you all? Will it get to us to talk about what do we do? Because, say they're cutting half of their program, but they're going to get the full amount. I mean, so late in the year, how are we going to address that?
So what happens currently, if that happens, if somebody comes to us halfway through the year and says, hey, we're not going to finish the scope of work that we set forward, as we talk to them, say, okay, what are you going to do? And if you are going to provide approximately the same number of services to approximately the same number of folks, then we say, okay, update in your next contract before we sign it. Let's make sure that your scope of work matches what you're going to do, but we're not going to completely change your funding if you are being proactive about, A, telling us, and B, figuring out how you're going to serve approximately similar audiences. If they say we cannot finish it and we can't replace it, which is what happened last year with some folks that did some layoffs. And as you remember, when it came time for the next contract, we did give funding cuts based on the service numbers that would be lowered. So in that instance, this would actually be the same thing that we've always done in terms of if a scope really isn't going to be completed, we let you know and we'll look at it in the next year that it's funded. We'll look at that for that next year's contract. So this would quantifiably allow us to mark that and then let you as the allocations committee make a decision based on points rather than just sort of arbitrarily deciding, you had a layoff of this much and so we'll this much.
Before Commissioner Stelsey, just 1 minute, Glenn had a comment as well.
For COP contracts, hi everyone. For COP contracts, along with all of them, they're contracted for an amount not to exceed, right? So if mid-year we found out that half of the programs, and if they weren't able to make up half of their contracted services, we would do an administrative call to say, okay, well, you're not meeting the scope of services as laid out in your contract, and so we will only pay out for those services you can meet.
Answer that.
Does that help answer that question as well? So those contracts are not to an exceed amount.
Thank you, Glenn. Before we move on to you, Commissioner Spellisy, Commissioner Holomo, I wanted to be sure we answered your question because when I first heard your question, there's kind of a difference between what Julia has answered is if in year 1 or year 2 or year 3, the scope of work presented at application time changes during that year, what do we do? And I wanted to be clear your question was not, or that somebody doesn't have the question, what if the scope of work approved by the panel, right? Because in year 1, the panel gets a certain scope of work. What if they come back to us in year 2 with a different scope of work because we're not having a panel judge? And I'm going to ask Julia to talk about that question just in case somebody has that on their mind as well.
I'm sorry. I probably gave a
I
really
think
not
you answered
answer to that.
His question, I'm not sure. So
It was
Yeah.
it was addressed. It was, say, your junior players and it's year 2 and 4 months into getting your approval for COP year 2, there's some big changes, right? And you're not able to fulfill, or you have to move more programming outside of Dallas, right? Do we take that on as a case-by-case basis, or is the staff going to be able to resolve it and then present to us what they've determined?
Yes.
Okay.
so she did answer that
That's-
question. So will you go ahead and
Yes,
address the
thank
other
you.
one while we're at it?
Yes. And for the other one that Chair Bragaloni just brought up, which is what if the panel approves your 12 operas at an education program or something, and then year 2 comes and you say, okay, we're going to do 1 opera and we're moving the other 11 to Plano. What if that happened in year 2? If that happened, you would get a 0 for significantly changing your scope, or a 5 if you changed it and explained a good bit of it and you reduced it significantly. And that would give us enough cause to bring it to you so that allocations could look at it, and we'd have, what this also does is signal to organizations that once you get something through the panel, we hope that your work and workload and scope of work will basically stay the same or grow for the next 3 years until we check it again really carefully in year 1.
And Commissioner Spellacy.
Oh, Glenn answered it. I was just wanting to clarify the mid-season, but it sounds like if somebody does change their scope in the middle of a grant cycle, the OAC staff has a discussion, and then you may not pay out everything that was awarded because they didn't fulfill the entire contract. So that sounds like that's how that's handled. And if there is a scope change, from year to year, that'll be something we do on allocations as far as adjusting the award if there is a kind of a shift in the scope for an organization from one year to the next.
Yep. And that was much better worded than I did. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Spellacy. Commissioner Jackson.
I was just curious. I know that we're doing this 3-year cycle and most of us haven't participated in that, although I think Glenn is aware that previously that was done. We did do cycles like this, right? I thought you said that.
Yes, ish, not 3-year, but it was a 2-year cycle
Okay.
for the second.
So, so the question is, aside from it being 3 years and we don't know what that might bring us, in general, how often is it that organizations are not meeting their scope of? I'm just curious. As
I
to whether or
don't-
not is that a real?
Yeah.
possibility that
So
happen?
not really. Most people know what their organization plans to handle and then says it accordingly. If and as stuff changes, which folks do let us know, and certainly things like pandemics and building economies and buildings needing repair and all of those, certainly those things happen, but usually people kind of give us a little heads up and then tell us their plan of how to do it. And so we can go on a case by case basis for them. And then in their final report, they're asked to tell us what didn't go to plan and why and how they'll fix it next year. And especially with this program, that it's operational funding, it's less on a specific deliverable and more about the full season that you provide. And most people are pretty upfront and putting together seasons that they can manage most of the time. Sure. Okay. The next thing, okay, so putting it all together. So here's what we have to share with you. So just recapping everything we just said. Returning orgs, your application's in 3 parts. It's shorter. There are, however, in case you get any complaints from your organizations, let me go ahead and head this one up now. There are more documents required, but they're drag and drop because you should already have them. So we're all on board. We're asking for things like strategic plans, employee handbooks, board handbook. If you don't have this, that's a different problem, but it's not because we're asking for, new essays or new things to be created for us. So this application is much shorter. Second, there's no panel. The panel process in year 1 opens the door for you to enter the program, but we're not going to look at your panel score again for this year. Your admin score is worth 80 points, 20 for your access and impact survey, 20 for your artistic and cultural services, 20 for your contract compliance, and 20 for your financial stewardship. If you're a new friend, different game. Your application is long. It's 5 parts, which is the length it's always been for a while, except for a length including that video. Your panel process is worth 70 points, public benefit, A&I, and organizational capacity. These are the same things that we have graded on for the last 5 years. Panel will review all new applicants together, but allocations committee will be able to compare those panel scores with scores of orgs in prior years. Their admins is worth 60 points. The artistic and cultural services, the contract compliance, which is again from the last contract you finished with the city, and financial stewardship. Here, This is responsive to our organization's ask for a more streamlined application that looks like prior years, and it is shorter. It is responsive to council's typical asks to know more about applicants' operational practices, so that if some contracts are going to be riskier than others, let's say organizations are working with really old documents, we're going to know a little sooner. Third, it's a lower administrative lift for our organizations, which is huge, especially in the year of our Lord 2026, panels and staff. And it's a really strong look at organizations' artistic impact and operational practices that we haven't been able to do in a while at this level. And I think that'll really help us figure out how we can better support our partners through this, and hopefully encourage some people to pick up some better, financial practices if they don't happen to have them already ready. So I'm curious to hear what you think, and I hope we can vote on this today.
Any comments, questions? Commissioner Spellacy.
I think this looks great. I think any questions I had, you've answered, and I think this will be much easier on our organizations doing this 3-year cycle. So great job, Julia.
Thank you, Commissioner Spellacy. Does anybody else have any comments or questions? And if not, we could entertain a motion at this time. Commissioner Truzilla.
Just ditto. I mean, I've been on this committee for a long, long time, and this is I think the biggest change that we've made. So kudos to everyone involved.
Thank you, Commissioner Truzilla. Anyone else? Would anyone like to make a motion regarding accepting the CO? Oh, Commissioner Spellacy.
Oh, I was just going to make a motion if that's okay
And
with
I'll
you.
second.
Yes.
All right,
Okay,
I'll move
so
that
we
we,
have-
do I need to say it? I
No,
move
go
that
ahead.
I move that we accept the COP organization guidelines as presented.
A
And we
second.
have a second from Commissioner Holomo, a motion from Commissioner Spellacy, a second from Commissioner Holomo. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Any opposition? The motion has passed unanimously.
It's really exciting. Thanks, everybody.
Yes, we have eliminated the need for the meeting next week, so you can take that off your calendars. The next item on our agenda is the Allocations Committee Chair updates and announcements. I have no Allocations Committee Chair updates or announcements, and I will share with you that Julia shared with me that her goal was for us to be out no later than 5:55. It's now 5:22, so
Wait, I got 2 more things.
staff update
Sorry.
go to Julia. So whether we finish by your goal
Oh.
is in your hands.
I'm on it. Here we go. Okay. There's a couple of engagement things I wanted to share with you. We had so much fun doing the COP guideline engagement sessions that we are gluttons for punishment. We're going to do some more. So we're going to talk about CAP guidelines with our CAP artists on January 20th and January 23rd. Again, you do not have to come, but you are welcome. So those invitations will get on your calendar shortly from Adriana. The second thing happening in January is really exciting, specifically for the Allocations Committee. So do you remember back in round 1, I came to you and said, friends, we have a problem and that there's no way that I can get these contracts up and running before December, but people applied with Arts Activate projects starting in October because that's what was in the rules. And so we're going to let them go ahead and win their award and do their projects without a contract. And then we're going to have a showcase about all the wonderful things they did and talk about why government support of the arts is so important. So that's what we're going to do. It's time. It's coming. We have 10 artists. We're going to do a little showcase. We're going to talk about how awesome those artists are, how awesome their projects are, and we'll end it with an information session for Arts Activate round 3. So if you have artists in your district that have not applied for Arts Activate or want an example of what a really great Arts Activate project would look like, this is the time and it'll be fun. We'll have snacks and food and fun stuff from 11:30 to 1:30, January 30th at the Bathhouse. Glenn has promised that he is going to MC that discussion. So you know it's going to be a good time. Thanks, Glenn. And finally, Arts Activate guideline engagement sessions, saving the most fun and contentious for last, February 26th and 27. I have not figured out where those are going to be yet, but we got them on the calendar anyway, because I know y'all are busy people. So these are some community things coming up. Hope you'll come. Okay, last.
Wait, before you move on,
Okay.
Glenn.
Sorry, I miscommunicated to Julie earlier. The location for the CAP guideline engagement session on January 23rd is still TBD, but we will put that location in the invite that we send out. That's my fault. Sorry, Julia.
Oh, great. Okay, perfect.
20th or the 23rd?
Commissioner Haloma.
Yes, I was going to ask if there was any way to do it in Oak Cliff.
Yeah, I can do it in Oak Cliff. Sure. The the Arts Activate one?
No,
You got
the
it.
guideline engagement session or the
Yeah, no, I can
CAP.
do it at I play Ring Around the Rosie with my cultural center bookings, so I was gonna go to Oak Cliff definitely for one of mine for Arts Activate. Done. I'll get it.
Okay. And let me know
Okay.
if OC3 is not available, maybe we can find you someplace else.
Got it. On it.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you.
All righty. And then last, committee and council meetings I need you to know about. So January 15th, come and I'll tell all your friends to vote on these same guidelines. It'll be great. We meet again in February. On the 17th, we're going to go to QLAC. Tell your friends in QLAC. They're going to get a memo. The 19th is when y'all meet again for ACAC. The 25th, we go to council with these COP guidelines. So that's the day to keep on. And then on March 5th, we get to talk about guidelines again for CAP and Arts Activate. So it'll be a party. If you're not ready, if there's just so many awesome things that we learned from those engagement sessions that we need a little more time, those might also be the April meeting. Okay, I'm there. I'm done.
Okay. Does anybody have any comments, questions? Julia, it is really good to have you back. Big kudos for some really excellent work done today. All business before this committee being concluded, I call the meeting to a close at 5:27 p.m. Thank you all.
Thank you. Great work.
Bye, guys. Great work.
Thank y'all.